Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all doing good and well. So in this sixth video of me talking about the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, I'm naturally talking about the sixth book of the series by Stephen Erickson. This is the Bonehunters. This follows on from book 5, Midnight Tides, which was a bit of a prequel really in the series. But in terms of chronological events, this is taking place a couple of months after the events that we witnessed in House of Chains. So if you like things to follow more in a kind of chronological order, you might be relieved that Erickson here is kind of going back to this kind of Seven Cities Rebellion part of the story, and that you're kind of going back to more recognisable chronology in the Malazan timeline here. So that may be of relief to you. And I would say, before I get too deep into the kind of review part of this video, that I think that this is the most rewarding read of the series for me so far as a reader of Malazan. I felt that for the first time perhaps in the series there are lots of coming together of characters that you're introduced to in the kind of first 4 books in particular, and it develops those relationships extremely well actually, and there are some unexpected relationships in this book and coming together of characters, which is also where the book really thrives a lot too. So I definitely recommend, if you've read the first 5 books and you're thinking, oh, you know, I'm not sure, I'm tiring of this series, I actually think you'll really like the Bonehunters if you've kind of paid attention to, you know, the events of the first 4 books in particular, and, you know, to the 5th book as well to an extent, to Midnight Tides. I think you'll find rewards in the Bonehunters. So what I usually do in these videos, I usually start just setting the scene a bit. I do a non-spoiler review of the book, and then I talk about my favourite moments as well. And I usually kind of list a few, you know, favourite moments of the book and pick them out from different pages where I can find them. In this 1200 page epic, you know, 1200 pages or so I think this one is. So this was a pretty long read. So let's get into setting the scene a bit more. So, like I say, this follows on from the events of House of Chains a couple of months afterwards. This is when the 14th Army have, you know, pretty much destroyed the Army of the Whirlwind, barring Learman of the Flails and what's left of this, you know, this rebellion. And essentially this 14th Malazan army, headed up by Adjunct Tavor, are now out to completely crush what's left of this rebellion. And they have to do so in the city called Egatan, which is where Learman of the Flails is taking refuge with what's left of his rebellion. And the thing is with this book for me, actually, so that's kind of setting the scene for, I think, the Bonehunters part of the story, which is more the second part of the book. For me, the first part of the book was the only part of this book I would say I struggled with a bit, because coming after Midnight Tides, you get reintroduced to loads of characters from previous books and some new characters as well. And it can be difficult to sort of, you really have to quite concentrate, I found anyway, because you really do jump around different groups of characters in this book, particularly I think in that first part I found anyway. And it's not until you get to the Bonehunters segment, you'll know what I mean by that when you read the book. It's kind of, you know, that's when the main events that are triggered by Learman of the Flails kind of setting the entire city alight happen. And like I say, I'm trying to avoid any kind of major spoilers here, so I won't go into too much of what happens when he's does that, and, you know, everything to do with that. But you know, it's really where things kind of get interesting for me in the book, is the second part, Beneath This Name, and the coming together of characters that are kind of stranded underground, and where they derive that nickname, the Bonehunters, and the title of the book is, I think, just where things get really good. They get intense, they get suspenseful, they get funny. I love Bottle and his rats a lot in the kind of, you know, the underground group of characters we have. And all that stuff is really, really good. So the third part of the book was kind of more, I felt, the sort of, you know, more of Karsa all along, and his story with this character called Samar Dev here. And I think they have some interesting relationship building going on there. And, you know, he has a bit of a role in that part of the story. But if I'm being honest, I thought that there was a little bit of me that thought that broke up some of the intensity that the book had built up to that point with all that was happening with the Bonehunters. I kind of loved the Bonehunters stuff so much in this book. I didn't want to break away from that too much. So when it cuts to kind of Karsa and Samar Dev, I felt the book just lost a bit of momentum. But it's not to say the Karsa and Samar Dev part wasn't good, because it was. It just felt like at times, you know, the kind of longer segments of the Karsa and Samar Dev part of this broke up that momentum from the Bonehunters part as well. And then the final part of this is unbelievably good. For me, it really is pretty phenomenal stuff. When you get to, all I'm going to say is it is, you know, pretty central characters of the book kind of coming together in a bit of a confrontation, a final kind of confrontation. And there's another kind of escape story that happens afterwards. And that is brilliant. And I mean, honestly, I couldn't, you know, at times in Malazan, I find it easy to take a break from the book. But for that whole part of that last part of this book, I could not take myself away from it. I was just so into it. It was so, so good. Anyway, let's get into the favourite moments now. So I've put the book down, and yet I need to get to my favourite moments. That was not so clever of me. So the first favourite moment is actually a Greyfrog demon that's accompanying Silara and Felisin Younger, killing these bandits, and this bandit called Guthrim, I think his name is. So let's get to it. So here we go. Greyfrog bounded forward, appallingly fast, and leapt upward, mouth opening wide. That mouth clamped onto Guthrim's head. The demon's lower jaw slipped out from its hinges, and the man's head disappeared. Greyfrog's momentum and weight toppled him, horrific crunching sounds. Guthrim's body spasming, spraying fluids, then sagging them. Kind of like Guthrim was kind of deserved that a bit, I think, for trying to assault Felisin Younger and Skilara there. So I often pick gory bits, don't I? That says a lot about me, I think. The second favourite moment is actually when Apsalar, I think it's page 256, if I've got that right. I think Apsalar is kind of meeting Paran, and if you remember, when she was Saurian, possessed by Cotillion, she attacked Paran, pretty much killed him, except, you know, he ascended and everything. But it's just a really interesting part, I think, of this book when she actually meets him, and I think it's the sort of, I'm just going to read out the part of this. So I think it's where is it? So she drew off her gloves, driven by the need to be doing something, and ran the back of her right hand across her brow. Was shocked to see it come away wet, the sweat beading, trickling, suddenly cold on her skin. "What are you doing here?" she asks, and as she realises that she has met with Paran. So my third favourite moment is going to be Fiddler, when he shows that he is trusting Corabb. So basically, they are on opposite sides. So Fiddler is part of the Malazan, part of the Malazan 14th Army, and Corabb was kind of second in command to Learman. So it seems an unlikely coming together of characters here because they were on opposite sides. But I like the way this kind of, that their trust is built throughout this part of the book. And Corabb says, "Lead us on then," reaching back to grasp Fiddler's harness once more. But Gesler comes in and sort of, Gesler's made to move past him, and he says, "No, I can do that." But then Corabb says, "No, I've dragged him this far," because Corabb's been with Fiddler. He's been sort of saving him, helping him out of the underground of Egatan. And then kind of Gesler obviously is kind of looking at Fiddler going, do you trust this person? Do you trust this Corabb? And then Fid simply replies, "For hood's sake, Gesler, I've never been in better hands." So he's showing his trust there to Corabb, towards Corabb. And then my final favourite moment of the book, oh no, it's not my final, sorry, my fourth favourite moment is when Samar Dev is explaining what frozen time is to Karsa all along. This kind of way that, it's interesting, it's the way this boat finder is describing tenses and stuff. And Karsa Oolong looked at Samardev. "What is this frozen time?" which he asked her in his charming way. And Samardev explains, "Well, it's the past, Teblor. Frozen time is the past." And then she watched his eyes narrow thoughtfully. Then he grunted and said, "And the unfound time is the future," meaning that now is the flowing time. And she realises that Karsa Oolong has grasped this concept of time the way that this boat finder has been explaining to them. Now we move on to the kind of final favourite moment I'm going to quote, and this is where there's this amazing exchange for me between the adjunct and Mallick Rel, whilst they're obviously in the company of Empress Lysine as well. This is kind of a whole confrontation between the adjunct, Lysine, Mallick Rel, Corabb Dom. It's just amazing, this bit. And you know, the adjunct is arguing with Mallick Rel about kind of, I guess, what they should do with the Wiccans and the Kundril, who have helped the adjunct, but yet Lysine and Mallick Rel and Corabb Dom just want them all to kind of be, you know, that they have no use for them in the city. They just want to get rid of them. They want to kill them all. And the adjunct is kind of defending them. And what's interesting is that, you know, the adjunct is portrayed, I think, in previous books as kind of cold as iron character. And by House of Chains and now by this book, you're sort of seeing other sides to her character, this kind of contrition coming through much more, her experiences, her mistakes kind of forming her later character in the series a bit more. And this is where, for me, that, you know, the book shines towards its conclusion, is with this amazing character work with this adjunct Tavor, I think. And it's just brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I guess it's the kind of segment, I'll read it out, unless you've read the book, I suppose it would be hard to place this, but the adjunct continued, "A very minor note in the imperial history is difficult to find. I believe, however, should you peruse the works of Duca, you will find suitable references. Of course, minor is a relative term, just as I suppose this Wiccan pogrom will be seen in later histories. For the Wiccans themselves, of course, it will be anything but minor." And there she's kind of defending the plight of the Wiccans, I think, to Mallick Rel in her argument with him. And yeah, it's just really good. And I also like it when she says, when Mallick Rel tries to argue, and he goes, "Your point, woman, your point." And then Adjunct Tavor comes back and says, "It is useful on occasion to halt upon a path and to turn and walk back some distance. Never have truer words been spoken than that." And I really like her in that part. It's kind of a shame that she can't, you know, you can see her conflicted, her divided loyalties with both the Empress, but also with the Wiccans and the Kundril and everything. She is a woman with a lot of weight on her shoulders, and not necessarily a likeable character, I think, you know, certainly from previous books, but she has a lot of weight on her shoulders, I think, that character for sure. So yeah, great book. Maybe my favourite in the series, but that's hard to say. You know, a bit like when you've just listened to an album, you need a bit more time to digest it and maybe reread this one, particularly because it's a massive book. But yeah, I really liked this one, perhaps on a par with books like Memories of Ice, which was another book I loved from the series. So yeah, I think this was a great read, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've been following my series of Malazan videos, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you want to support these videos and you want to support my continuing read of the Malazan series. Otherwise, from me, until next time, take care everybody, bye for now.